Hi, everybody. We are live from the MHS studio, and we are here today. And we want to thank you for taking the time out to listen to the webinar on building your company's entrepreneurial edge. In today's webinar, we're going to talk about how to identify and develop an entrepreneurial mindset within an organization. Just a few logistics before we get started. So you guys are all on mute, so that background noise is kept to a minimum. We added handouts in the section of the webinar panel. Be sure to download those now if you haven't already. We do want your questions. There is a question pane in the webinar panel where you can enter your questions, and we've left some time for questions at the end of our presentation, but feel free to type them in as they come to you. We are also recording this webinar, and it will be available on the MHS Talent YouTube channel in about 1 week for any colleagues who are unable to attend the live version. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's located at the bottom of your slide that you're seeing right now. Feel free to jot it down. I'll give you guys all a second. For those new on the line to MHS, I wanted to tell you a little bit about us and who we are. Multi-Health Systems is a global publisher of scientifically validated assessments. We have assessments in the clinical, education, public safety, and talent assessment markets. We're headquartered in Toronto, Canada, but we do have offices in North America and internationally. We've been in business for over 30 years. In the talent space, we are most widely known for our work in emotional intelligence, and specifically the tool, the EQI 2.0. We also have a very large, diverse toolkit, including assessments and simulations on personality, leadership, entrepreneurship, change management, influence, and decision-making. My name is Heather Petaccio, and I'm your moderator today, as well as one of our presenters. I'm a partner relations consultant on the talent assessment team here at MHS, and I work with clients like you guys on the line on talent development projects by putting together solutions to help you reach your objectives. I'm really excited today to be speaking to you about the Entrepreneurial Edge and to help you understand how it will work within your organization. Clark is our other presenter. Clark, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, thank you, Heather. Hi, everyone. My name is Clark. I'm a research scientist in the Talent Assessment Division here at MHS. My personal background is in personality assessment, and I have a master's degree in industrial organizational psychology. I am the lead researcher for the Entrepreneurial Edge assessment.
In this webinar, we're going to explore the world of the entrepreneurial mindset, and in particular, intrapreneurs. We will explain to you the concept of intrapreneurs, and we're going to give you examples of how companies have embraced intrapreneurship. We're also going to introduce the Entrepreneurial Edge and show you how all of these things come together to help you understand how you can bring intrapreneurship within your company. Now, we're going to do a poll. We're going to open up the polls to everybody. So you're going to see a question, and the question is going to be, how many people have heard of the term intrapreneur? I'm going to give you guys a second to answer that, and then I'm going to talk to you about the answer.
Heather, it looks like we're already getting a bunch of answers.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're going to close the polls in just a second. So, interestingly enough, it's almost a 50-50 split. 59% of you said yes, and 41% of you said no, which isn't necessarily surprising because the term intrapreneur is relatively new in the marketplace, and people may not have the best understanding of how to bring intrapreneurship into their organization. So that's what we're here to help you with today. I have a second question for you guys too. So I want you to think about, have you ever considered about bringing intrapreneurship into your organization? So the polls are open. Feel free to answer. The answers are yes, no, or we already have intrapreneurs in our organization. I'll give you guys a couple more seconds. Okay, great. Thank you for answering. And this is interesting too. So 37% of you said yes, 47% said no, and 16% said we already have intrapreneurs. So this is great because this webinar will show you about how the Entrepreneurial Edge assessment can help you bring the concept of intrapreneurship within your organization.
All right. Thank you very much, Heather. And thank you, everyone, for answering the polls. Heather, I want to start us all off by just looking at some of the context that we'll be going into that'll set the stage for the Entrepreneurial Edge and for talking about entrepreneurs. So, Heather, if you had to describe in a single word, what would you say is the major problem or are the major problems that businesses are dealing with?
Clark, in today's world, I really wish that there was one challenge and one word to describe the challenges that are faced by the businesses today. But unfortunately, in today's constantly evolving and changing environment, there are too many. But I'm going to talk to you about a few. So there is a need for companies to innovate to face the disruption that's caused by change. There are so many technological advances that are being made every day, and businesses need to learn how to keep up in order to keep their share of the market. There's also a need to identify agile, forward thinkers within a company with an established infrastructure. Organizations are being forced to change in every facet of their business, and they have to deal with that disruption due to change. So they're not just changing the business, they're changing their core competencies as well. So they need to improve their well-being, engagement, health, and business lines. And competition is fierce. It is getting stronger and stronger every day. So this leads these companies to ask themselves these questions. How can a company find people to solve these major business problems? When they do identify who they are, how can they tap into their entrepreneurial mindset? And what makes someone an entrepreneur?
All very good questions, really. And these are a lot of challenges. And I'm sure a lot of companies are struggling with this on a daily basis. And most likely, they may have failed in the end. So what can we do about that?
Yeah, they have actually. And it's overwhelming to hear about these challenges that the businesses are faced with. Lots have failed, but a lot have succeeded as well. So this slide is interesting, and I want to share with you some interesting facts about it. In 2015, this is based off a study that Deloitte published regarding Fortune 500 companies. So, Clark, did you know that 88% of the Fortune 500 companies in 1955 are no longer in existence today?
No, I didn't. That's actually a lot.
It is a lot. I'm sure you've heard of Blockbuster.
Mm-hmm.
So you know that they had to declare bankruptcy. They refused a partnership with Netflix because they said it was too much of a niche business. I mean, they missed the ball on that one, and they had to declare bankruptcy. Another example of a big toy company, Toys R Us, had to go out of business as well. They made the mistake of signing actually a 10-year contract with Amazon to become their exclusive vendor. Unfortunately, Amazon did something a little sneaky, and they allowed other toy vendors to sell on its site too. Toys R Us ended up suing, but it was way too late. They were too late in the game to develop their own e-commerce presence. So they had to declare bankruptcy. And Borders, I'm sure you all know Borders, that's a big book company. They refused to embrace new technologies or the internet. So Amazon and Barnes & Noble, they did. They created this big e-commerce platform for books. And unfortunately, Borders kept opening up store after store, making it impossible to keep up and ending up in bankruptcy.
Yeah, those are all fairly good examples of companies that have had to shut their doors, that just weren't able to innovate or keep up with the market. But there still has to be some that survived, I assume.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So Kodak, for instance, they dominated the photo film market for most of the 20th century. They failed to see the importance of digital photography. Here's an interesting little tidbit, though. They developed the first digital camera back in 1975, and they didn't go to market with it. So they failed, but they're still in existence today, and they had to innovate.
Ah, good. Yeah, I have some thoughts about Kodak, and I still have to say that what you've talked about is very interesting. And I think these companies really do have to stay ahead with innovation to survive.
Innovation is an extremely important component, especially with the concept of entrepreneurs. So you're absolutely right. And I want to dig a little deeper into the topic of companies that have failed and those that have innovated and succeeded. In this slide, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about a 2017 study that showed the 33-year average tenure of companies on the S&P 500 in 1964 narrowed to 24 years by 2016. But what's even more amazing about this is that it's forecast to shrink to just 12 years by 2027. And out of these Fortune 500 firms from 1955 versus today, only 60 still exist. So Clark, I want to do like a little fun exercise with you. You up for it?
Yeah, sure.
All
Let's
right,
go for it.
cool. All right. So I'm going to read off these groupings and they're going to be company names. And I want you to think about what each one of these groups has in common. Group A is American Motors, Brown Shoe, and Studebaker. Group B is Boeing, General Motors, and IBM. And Group C is Amazon, Facebook, eBay, and Target.
Okay, Group A. Who did you say that was again?
It's American Motors, Brown
Motors,
Shoe,
Brown
and
Shoe.
Studebaker. Are you having trouble with that one?
Honestly, I think I've only heard of Studebaker before. B and C, I'm pretty sure. I know I've heard of all of them.
Okay.
Studebaker, yeah, I feel like I might have heard of that in a song.
In fact, you did. Actually, it's in one of my favorite Billy Joel songs called We Didn't Start the Fire. But I'll be happy to elaborate on all of these.
Okay.
So Group A is absolutely out of business. They, American Motors, Brown Shoe, and Studebaker. So some of you on the line probably never heard of these companies because they're no longer in existence. They were in 1955 Fortune 500 companies, but they don't exist today. Now, Group B, Boeing, GM, and IBM, they existed in 1955 as well as today. And then Group C, they're all new to the market. Amazon, Facebook, eBay, and Target. So they're all Fortune 500 companies today, but they didn't exist back in 1955. Now, all of the companies in Group B and C, they don't fear change. They thrive on disruption, and they're constantly innovating, and they have adopted to the entrepreneurial mindset and allowed entrepreneurs to flourish within their company. And we'll talk to you about that a little bit more as we go through this presentation. So I just gave you a lot of examples of companies that have adopted the concept of intrapreneurs. So Clark, can you let us know exactly like what an intrapreneur is and how can intrapreneurs help the organizations that are on the line?
All right. I'd be glad to, Heather. Thank you. So really with intrapreneurs, the definition dates back to the 1970s, but without getting too historical, intrapreneurs are people who innovate within an organization. They're the ones who bring an entrepreneurial mindset to their company. So I want to share a quote from a similar Deloitte white paper on entrepreneurship back in 2015. The big idea they had was that it's not about creating entrepreneurs. It's about finding and recognizing them. Really, every company has at least one intrapreneur. They might be the person thinking up new ideas, or they might be designing prototypes. They're often the dreamers within a company. Given the opportunity, they can bring a company to great heights by innovating from within. Now, Heather, you probably have a good example that comes to mind when I talk about the benefit of innovating and of intrapreneurs.
I do. And all of what you said is very true. So I want to share with you a prime example of an intrapreneur that comes to mind for me. And it's a very familiar name with no pun intended. It's Amazon and Jeff Bezos.
Oh, okay. Everyone knows Amazon. I mean, I have a Prime membership myself.
I do too. It's great.
Yeah.
So we'd really be amiss to go without mentioning Amazon. Everybody knows who they are. They sell everything from electronics to toys to hair products, and fashion and groceries. But Jeff Bezos, what people may not know about him is he left a top Wall Street financial job to start up Amazon. And now he heads up the company today. What he is amazing at is he is not afraid when the company isn't good at something. In fact, he actually thrives on that.
Okay, that's really interesting. So then what makes him someone that has that type of mindset?
Well, I think what makes up his mindset is he's customer obsessed. He's not competition obsessed. And he's always been a leader of innovation. So in 2003, after that .com boom, the wild, wild west that they used to call it, he was quoted in a TED Talk as saying, "I do think there's more innovation ahead of us than there is behind us. We're very, very early." But innovate he did. And now he stands at the forefront of this really successful brand that he refuses to allow to stagnate. So he is busy solving these problems every single day, and he never shies away from a challenge.
I like that. That's really nice, Heather. And really, that's why intrapreneurs, in my opinion, bring so many benefits when they're in a company. For example, because intrapreneurs are innovative by nature, they're more likely to welcome change. They can be the change agents who help support a company's transition. Intrapreneurs are also good at spurring growth. They're the ones who are constantly thinking outside the box. And their mindset helps them create really innovative solutions to problems or create new products or services. So they come up with these valuable innovations. They can move a company forward. For example, they're able to develop these new products or services that might open up an entire new market for a company.
Clark, I really can see the benefits behind all of that. But what my concern is, I feel like companies are not embracing entrepreneurship. It's really probably not easy to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, you're kind of right there. Like everything, trying to be an entrepreneur can come with its own challenges. First, people who are trying to be entrepreneurs may be missing the right mindset that we've talked about. They may want to be an entrepreneur, but they don't have that drive or that optimism to keep going. They may also be struggling to manage their own behavior when things get tough. So one of the things entrepreneurs need to do is they need to adapt. They need to be able to take risks, even in an organization, and they need to be able to stay on top of stress. And some individuals may find this difficult. They may also be lacking support from others to do so, whether because they don't have any support, they may not know how to build it, even in an organization. They may have an idea in mind for something they want to build, but it's something they want to create that they might not be clear about how to get there and build that.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So this really goes back to those business challenges that we were talking about earlier. One of the problems that I know companies face is they have a set infrastructure and they don't know how to support the entrepreneurs. So part of the problem could be that being an entrepreneur is quite a new thing.
Yeah, that's right too. Being an entrepreneur is a new thing for both the entrepreneur and the company that's trying to support that. And part of that is that you're dealing with an organizational structure and you're dealing with people trying to innovate that don't know what they're missing or what they need to improve on. And so essentially they don't know what they don't know. And this can be a problem because they don't have the tools that they can rely on to help them understand what they need to succeed. So this is really where I think the Entrepreneurial Edge assessment that we've been talking about comes in.
Absolutely. And with few tools in the market, the Entrepreneurial Edge can be a great way. And we've mentioned the Entrepreneurial Edge before, but now it's a great time to introduce it. So Clark, like many of our MHS products, the Entrepreneurial Edge is an assessment that can help these organizations identify people within their company with the innovative skills to solve the business challenges that they face today. Can you share with us more about the Entrepreneurial Edge?
Yeah, you really hit the nail on the head. It's an assessment that helps organizations identify those entrepreneurs. And it does that and more. I mean, the Entrepreneurial Edge is there to help both people innovating in an organization and people who are trying to create their own. Specifically, the Entrepreneurial Edge is an assessment that measures the competencies needed for entrepreneurial success. What I'm really proud of is that it's based on decades of entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship research, and it's built with the help of coaches who have tons of experience coaching both entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. What we were successful in doing is we found 12 competencies that are key for entrepreneurial success, whether you're building your own company, as I said, or you're trying to innovate from within.
So 12 competencies. That's interesting. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Will you dive deeper?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what I want to do here. Based on our research, we identified 12 competencies that make up the Entrepreneurial Edge. We worked extensively with experts in entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship to go over these 12. And part of that led us to group these 12 competencies into 4 action modes. When I say action modes, what I'm talking about is that these are the skill sets that all entrepreneurial people make use of to succeed. The action modes are ways that entrepreneurial people, both intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs, behave. And they're each made up of 3 different competencies, totaling 12 in total. So for example, take a look at the managing self action mode you can see on the screen. Managing self is all about managing your own behavior during times of uncertainty, and it includes the adaptable, risk tolerant, and stress motivated competencies.
Wow, I know a lot of my clients can relate to a lot of these competencies, especially the need to be risk tolerant.
Yeah, I mean, you can probably think of many reasons why it's important to tolerate risk when you're innovating. Think of a scenario when many managers hear about a new opportunity. It sounds great. They would like the idea, but maybe they think it's too risky to take a chance on. And in fact, they'd actually rather wait till others have tried it before going forward. The problem is then they're losing out on that opportunity because they were too slow to adapt. A good example of the need to be risk tolerant is Kodak. Kodak had the opportunity to move into digital cameras, like you said, and they could do this early on. But they feared that this would take a lot of wind out of one of their core sales, which was film-based products. I know, as you said, they eventually moved into digital, but not after losing a lot of market share.
That's interesting, Clark, because I've really got a story for you, and it's about 3M and the Post-it.
Oh, okay.
So I love the fact that Kodak embraced the idea of managing self. And another company, as I had mentioned, 3M, they also embraced the idea of managing self. They had a rough start with the development of the Post-it. So the story dates back pretty far, actually, to 1965, when a scientist at 3M in the United States, Dr. Spencer Silver, was attempting to develop a super strong adhesive. He accidentally instead created a low-tack, reusable, pressure-sensitive adhesive. And for 5 years, he tried to promote his solution without a problem. He tried to do that informally in 3M, and he also did these seminars, but no one ever bit. He didn't gain any acceptance.
Wait, okay, so he was willing to take the risk, but 3M wasn't at the time.
Exactly. So he went deeper into managing self because he was adaptable, not just risk tolerant. In 1974, a colleague who had attended one of his seminars, Art Fry, came up with the idea of using that same adhesive that Dr. Silver invented to anchor his hymn book. So Fry then turned around and used his idea to make the Post-it, and he sanctioned what they call permitted bootlegging. So they started this policy of permitted bootlegging, and it exists to this day. So employees are allowed to spend 15% of their time at 3M working on projects that they like for the company, and they continue to have that permitted bootlegging policy in place. The Entrepreneurial Edge really would have helped 3M and the development of the Post-it because it would have identified Dr. Silver as an entrepreneur, someone who's adaptable, risk-tolerant, and stress-motivated, innovative, in fact. Wouldn't it be great if 3M had the entrepreneurial back then, Clark?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this is a great example of something that could help out every organization or someone listening online today.
So there are 3 other Entrepreneurial Edge action modes that you had referenced, correct? That are also important traits.
Yes, that's true. And I want to talk about all of them in turn. The next one I want to talk about is the action mode of leveraging mindset. Now, leveraging mindset is all about keeping the right entrepreneurial mindset. When I talk about that, I mean that the best intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs are those that are innovative, that are driven, and that are optimistic. For example, it should be really easy to see why being innovative is important for intrapreneurs. You need to be able to come up with new ideas to move a company forward. Sony is a really good example of this. I mean, they're consistently a market leader in technology and photography and television and my favorite, gaming. In fact, their PlayStation system was actually the result of them allowing one of their one of their engineers to spend time working on an old Nintendo system.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So, Clark, that really brings me to something similar and reminds me of the leveraging mindset. Come to think of it, I was reading an article the other day about Lego, and I think it really relates well to leveraging mindset. So everyone knows Legos. It's the world's biggest toy manufacturer. They're a simple brick that allows imagination to run wild. You can really create something out of this tiny little colorful brick, and it gives you so many ideas and it allows for interactivity and risk-taking and brainstorming. And they offer excitement from the simplicity of the colors and the shapes. And I love taking a Lego and building something magical out of a tiny brick.
All right. I mean, I like Legos too, but just for everyone listening, how does Lego tie into the Entrepreneurial Edge?
Oh, sorry, Clark. I get excited when my imagination was running wild with the possibilities of what I can build with a Lego. So I do apologize for that. Got carried away. So as large and successful of a brand that they were, they're not without mistakes. So they doubled down on licensing, too much branding. They had these short Lego brick runs with the SpongeBob thing, lots of different short Lego brick runs, special edition sets, and it hurt their business in the mid-2000s. So Lego had to leverage their talent, rely on their brand, and innovate from within. Their team was optimistic and driven, which led them to creating the Lego Movie. The Lego Movie was a huge box office success, and it spawned sequels. And it ended up making millions in both film and Lego merchandise. But what's more important is that this strategy actually helped them increase their sales by 19%.
Ah, I see. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I remember watching the Lego movie, and I have to say that's a great segue to the next action mode because you talked about essentially strategy. And that's what the next one is about. It's about creating strategy. And that means being able to create and execute a successful strategy. So entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs who are able to do this are able to navigate an organization. They have a solid plan and they can create a clear vision.
Yeah, vision is something I hear all the time, and I'm asked about that. So whenever clients talk about change or their need to change, vision is really, really important.
Definitely. Vision is clearly important, especially when you're starting out with a new idea. I mean, it's how you use your vision to get buy-in from others, especially in an organization. When you have a solid vision, others want to join your team, especially with resources often being scarce in a company. You need to sell people on the idea you have to get those resources to build what you need.
Yeah, Clark, that next competency has me thinking about another example of a company that had an entrepreneurial mindset. So, specifically, the company was organizationally oriented, they had strategic planning, and they also had a vision. So, eBay's former chief of staff of global management, Healy Cipher, knew he was missing out on this huge business opportunity when he realized that 75% of all consumer purchases were happening within 15 miles of people's homes. So what he did was he started reaching out to retailers such as Sony, Toys R Us, and Tom's. Being that eBay only had an e-commerce solution, he wanted to put standalone retail stores within those retailer stores. So they went for it. And eventually he went on to launch eBay standalone locations as well.
Ah, okay. And okay, this sounds like it really shows why it's important for entrepreneurs to be in a company. I mean, these type of things aren't asked for in this situation. I don't think anybody told him to do so. Uh, it essentially just happened because he was an entrepreneur who was looking for ways to improve eBay, and he wasn't asked to do this.
You're exactly right. He was the definition of an entrepreneur. He wasn't asked to innovate. He wasn't asked to think outside the box to develop any of these solutions. But he looked inward to his company. So he decided to create this model and this new formal division that ended up actually becoming the centerpiece of their company for years. He left eBay eventually and he started up his own retail companies, but he has left his legacy and his vision with the creation of the Innovation Lab.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense. And if I can say so, I really like that story, Heather. And I want to talk about the last action mode now that's contained in the Entrepreneurial Edge. Now, this action mode is called building relationships, and it's about engaging others to reach common goals. When you're good at building relationships, this means that you can understand where others are coming from. You know how to manage other people's expectations, their wants, their needs, and you're also an effective team builder. This is an interesting action mode because a common misconception is that entrepreneurs may be tinkering on something on their own or they're working only independently. In fact, the best entrepreneurs are great at building a team to help them.
Yeah, team dynamics are extremely important, as well as relationships. So my clients are always coming to me because they want to make sure that their employees are working well together and that they're communicating effectively. Because when the team is working together, they can help generate new ideas. They can start innovating.
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, take a good example is Richard Branson. I mean, he was able to build his Virgin Group from a small chain of record stores to more than 400 companies. And that came from being able to build relationships with others that he could leverage elsewhere. He was a very considerate person and he knew how to bring people up. He knew how to manage others to help them get to where they needed to. And in turn, he was able to grow a multi-billion-dollar empire.
Wow. Clark, that's awesome. That's really amazing. And the stories are great. And they really relate to the 12 competencies. So it really gives everybody and myself a better sense of what those 12 competencies are and how they function within an organization. But one thing we really haven't touched on yet is what will our listeners get when they take the Entrepreneurial Edge assessment?
Well, that's a good question. We have an Intrapreneur Report that is being released soon, and that's meant for respondents who are already employees. These are people who are already or want to be innovating within an organization. No worries though, for the entrepreneurs on the line, we will have an entrepreneur report that will be released afterwards. But for now, we want to focus on the entrepreneur one.
So I've seen this report before, and it looks great, but I want to learn a little bit more about what's included in the report.
Sure. If everyone can see here, this is what the report looks like. It's an 11-page report, and I want to focus on the 4 main sections of this report. Here's the first section, which is the models page. It includes the Entrepreneurial Edge model, and it's made up of 2 things: the innovation cycle, which shows the stages that all entrepreneurial ventures go through, and the action modes that I've talked about before. This is how we group the competencies together. Both parts of this model are used throughout the report. The innovation cycle and its stages are used to provide context for the advice that anyone is given in the report. The action modes, by comparison, are there to provide a structure for you to understand the competencies more. So I want to kind of delve into the innovation cycle in more detail because it's really important and it's what most intrapreneur and entrepreneur ventures go through. The first part is the innovating stage. This is everything you do up until you launch your venture. That means when you're coming up with your idea, or it means when you're talking to people and trying to get their initial thoughts right before you launch. The next stage is the marketing stage. This is when you're first trying to get buy-in or you're trying to increase sales or get the word out. After that is the growing stage, when you've gotten some acceptance and you're trying to expand. Maybe you go after different markets, or maybe you increase the scope of your venture to include more areas. Finally, the renewing stage is near the end of a venture, so to speak. It's when your original idea is reaching its maximum potential. This is when you come up with a new idea that'll help you get to the next level. Once you complete the renewing stage, you're effectively back to the innovating stage, as now you're trying to relaunch with a new concept or idea. And one of the things I like is that the Entrepreneurial Edge assessment covers all of these stages. So wherever you are in this innovation cycle, the Entrepreneurial Edge is there to help you.
That's a great model, Clark.
Oh, thank you. Now, moving on, I want to talk about the scores page. This is where you'll spend most of your time. How it works is that you'll be given a score for each of the 12 competencies. Every score is placed on one of 5 bands, and these bands run from consider developing to fair to moderate to high, and then to exceptional. One of the things I like is that there aren't any numbers here that can be a little bit confusing. This way of using 5 bands helps you interpret your score so that you can see where your strengths and development areas are, and you can compare between competencies. Now, for people who really want to delve deep into their scores, we do have a set of results pages that go into more detail about each of the competencies. For example, you can see the adaptable competency here. Adaptable is all about being able to take on different tasks and switching between them. Entrepreneurs who are able to adapt are able to change, and they're comfortable with taking on different roles. People who struggle with being adaptable usually prefer roles that don't change. They tend to find a routine that works for them and stick with it, while highly adaptable entrepreneurs enjoy variability. They work well in new, unfamiliar situations, and they're the ones who can roll with the punches.
Clark, I like the results page, and I think it's great that it talks about the high and the low competencies and what they look like, because then clients can see what they need to emulate to mirror that competency. I really can see the results page being useful when clients are faced with challenges and they need to figure out what they need to do to help them adapt to the new situations that are arising. So I think another great example of this is IBM. They lagged behind with innovation. They refused to put their focus on software solutions, and it led to their decline in the marketplace. Eventually, they did come around and they did become a huge software enterprise. But because they focused so much on hardware, they took a long time adapting to those changes in the technological environment. Once again, though, they're going to need to switch gears, and they're going to need to adapt because they are slowly feeling the effects of the market turning to artificial intelligence. So, Clark, I really want to thank you for that thorough review. I'm sure that other assessment companies might say that they have something similar. But from everything I've heard and everything you've said, it really sounds like the Entrepreneurial Edge has a lot of positives that make it stand out.
Heather, the Entrepreneurial Edge really does have a lot of benefits. First and foremost, Like all MHS products, we put a lot of scientific work into the assessment. For example, to build the assessment, we collected more than 1,700 responses from entrepreneurs, from intrapreneurs, leaders, and regular employees, all of whom really help us understand how to get at entrepreneurial success. And that was just the survey data. I mean, we also interviewed experts, we interviewed intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs, leaders in the field, and we reviewed a lot of the top journals on entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship to make sure that the Entrepreneurial Edge is based on the latest research. With 12 competencies, the assessment is also very comprehensive. We conducted a large literature review to examine what past research has found to predict entrepreneurial success. And this made sure that the competencies in the assessment covered a large majority of predictors. We worked with our coaches to add advice in the report that's tailored to your strengths and development areas, as well as your context, whether you're an intrapreneur or an entrepreneur. And in addition, several of the pages have been designed to apply to each stage of a person's venture, whether you're just starting out or you have a rich history and are looking to expand. So one of the things I want to talk about is why would someone come to MHS and use the Entrepreneurial Edge? Have we heard from clients who may need this?
As a matter of fact, Clark, we have. So the benefits you just referenced can help a lot of the organizations that are on the line today. I actually have a number of clients that have come to me that are facing the business challenges that we heard about earlier. And they need to look for entrepreneurs that display the qualities of these 12 competencies that we have in the Entrepreneurial Edge. Both companies have asked that I don't share their information due to confidentiality and competitive reasons, but I can share with you that they are both large institutions from the South. So my first example of a client is a top university client that came to me. So they're looking for an assessment that can help them identify entrepreneurs in their healthcare curriculum. So the students are getting ready to graduate and they want to enter the professional field now of healthcare, and they want to see if they have that entrepreneurial mindset to elicit the change in healthcare. The students are interested in taking an assessment that will help them see if they are good at innovating ideas and within their industries. And they want to know if this is the correct path for them to go down. And do they have those qualities to be that innovator in their field? So I pointed them to the Entrepreneurial Edge.
I think this is a great time to plug one of the pages in, or one of the sections of pages in the report, and that's the action items page. These pages have advice that's tailored directly to your scores. So depending on what you score, you will get advice on how to best leverage your strengths or work on those development areas. What I'm proud of is that we worked with our coaches to create advice that directly addresses each competency, and it's tailored to each of the different stages of the innovation cycle. So what you're able to do is you can know how to work on that competency regardless of what stage of the cycle you're in. For example, you can see what it's like to need to be considerate. And if you're in the innovating stage, you'll get the advice that you should get others' opinions about your proposed venture so that you can focus less on pitching your venture and more on how you can help them. And that's what I really like about the Entrepreneurial Edge is it has all of that advice. Now, you did talk about a second example, right?
I sure did. And that was great to show how that page can work with that client. Thank you for that. And the second example I'd like to share with everybody, and you, Clark, is an insurance company that I've been talking to in the South. This company is made up of insurance brokers, but they ultimately have their own control of their business, but they fall under the umbrella of a corporation. The owner is a born entrepreneur. He's got the mindset of innovation and change and risk taking. So he wants to find and identify people within his organization. He wants to know the brokers who have the same mindset as him. He doesn't feel that a lot of them do, and he wants to make sure that he can either help them develop some of the skills needed or that identify those that do have that same entrepreneurial mindset. So again, I recommended the Entrepreneurial Edge.
Oh, okay. I can see the Entrepreneurial Edge working really well for this client too. I mean, because of the straightforwardness, the ease of identifying scores in the Edge, I can see your client looking at the results and the scores page to find out who are most like him and also find out how he can get others to develop his kind of mindset. Sounds about right.
Yeah. So everybody, we've learned a lot today about what makes an intrapreneur. We've learned about companies that are looking to identify with those with an entrepreneurial mindset and the MHS tool, the Entrepreneurial Edge, that can help organizations such as you identify internally the talent needed to innovate in this world that has a lot of disruption, technological advances, and change. But before we wrap up and take your questions, Clark, would you mind just telling us a little bit more about the release of the Entrepreneurial Edge?
Sure, happy to. We are looking to release the Intrapreneur Report later this year. The report will cost 40 tokens, and that report includes all the things we've talked about today. It includes scores, advice, information about the different competencies that will lead to entrepreneurial success. For those coaches out there that are looking to assess clients, you can start using it today because there is a training program you can purchase, which is 85 tokens, and it includes access to one report. For entrepreneurs and prospective entrepreneurs, again, don't worry, there is an entrepreneur report coming in next year.
Well, thanks, Clark. So now we're going to take some questions. The first question is for Clark. How are intrapreneurs and entrepreneurs different?
Simple question, happy to answer. So one of the things we found is that intrapreneurs are people who, one, as I said, are innovating within an organization. And entrepreneurs are people who are building a company on their own. And that's really the clear distinction there. We do find that in general, entrepreneurs have a little bit of higher skill than intrapreneurs on these competencies. And that makes sense. In general, you have to be a little bit more risk tolerant to be an entrepreneur, for example. But it's a really great way to kind of test the waters and bring an entrepreneurial mindset while still being in an organization when you try to be an intrapreneur.
That's great, Clark. Thank you. So the second question that has come in, and we did touch on it briefly, but how has the reliability and validity of the tool been evaluated? And where can this information be found?
Happy to answer that. So one of the things I'm proud of is that the Entrepreneurial Edge is part of MHS's list of assessments. So that means that it's been scientifically validated and assessed. We do years of research before launching to the market. We took a lot of effort to make sure the Entrepreneurial Edge showed a lot of internal consistency and it was predicting different entrepreneurial outcomes. This essentially makes sure that the Entrepreneurial Edge is a reliable and valid assessment. And if anyone is interested in learning more about that, we will have a tech manual out when we release with the Entrepreneurial Edge that goes into far greater detail than I can right now.
That's great. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so this question actually is for me.
I can see it here. So Heather, is the Entrepreneurial Edge applicable for the public sector and government?
Yes, actually, it's applicable to everyone. So if you're looking to identify an entrepreneur, you can look within any type of organization, from government to healthcare to university. So it would be applicable to just about anybody who is looking for somebody to be adaptable, to innovate change, to be a risk taker. Anybody with any of that you're looking to identify that may have these 12 competencies. And you may need to compose a team of people that need to elicit change within, or you're working on a project, let's say, that you need change and adaptability and innovation. This is a great tool to find those people, identify them, and yes, it would work in the public sector and the government.
Oh, that's great. Happy to hear about that. I mean, I know it, but I'm happy to hear you talk about it. Here's another question we got from our listeners. Can you please explain a little bit more about the certification kit or the training program for coaches? I'm sure it includes more than just that one report.
Sure. Yes. So the certification kit, or actually what we're referring to as is the training program, is 85 tokens, as we had referenced. And basically what is included within that is the one free report, but also you're going to get modules online to dive through to learn more about how to deliver and speak to the people that you're assessing that want to be intrapreneurs or entrepreneurs. So you're going to get all of those tools on your TAP portal and your marketing resources tab in order to deliver the results of the actual assessment.
Oh, okay. Great. Thank you. We have another question here. Once you purchase the training program for $85, then you can purchase the actual assessments for your clients. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. You can actually start using this tool immediately. Once you purchase that certification kit, you can start ordering the reports for your clients and you can use it right away.
Okay, that's great. We're getting a lot more questions for you, Heather, so I hope I can keep firing it off.
Yeah,
Yeah? All right.
absolutely. Feel free.
Okay, here's another question. Can this Entrepreneurial Edge assessment be used in nonprofits or nonprofit associations?
Sure, I would say yes. Nonprofits and associations, you're going to be looking for ways to innovate and do things differently and outside the box as far as getting ideas to work within the nonprofits and the associations. So yes, just like with the government sector, these competencies would definitely work and help out nonprofits and associations. You need to identify those people from within who can help generate those ideas and come up with innovation and change.
Okay. Thank you. Heather, we have another question here. It looks like we've referred to tokens. Can you explain what a token is?
Sure. So because we do have a presence in North America, internationally, as well as Canada, we refer to the purchase of an assessment in tokens. But one token in the US is equal to $1. So to give you an idea of what a token is.
Okay. So it helps kind of have a basis for everyone.
Yes. So when you purchase something, you actually purchase with tokens.
Okay.
But it's $85. So $85 is equal to 85 tokens in.
All right.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Thank you so much. Now we have just another few questions, Heather. Oh, I think this one's for me, I guess.
Yeah, it is actually.
You can read it out.
Sure,
now.
sure. Okay. So Clark, what sets the Entrepreneurial Edge apart from other assessments in the marketplace?
Happy to answer that. One of the things I'm proud of is that it's one of the few entrepreneurial assessments in the market. And it's the only one that personally we could find with advice directly tailored to intrapreneurs. It also comes with MHS's strong scientific reputation. And with that strong kind of scientific properties that back up the Entrepreneurial Edge assessment, that means that you can trust the scores. It's got great ease of use, detailed interpretation, and follow-up action plans, which mean that anyone can use it and they can find advice that they can use to move forward.
That's great, Clark. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's all we have for questions.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone, for asking. We really appreciate it.
Okay, so I just also wanted to point out the YouTube channel again for everyone here on the line. We do have a YouTube channel, and it's called MHS Assessments, Talent Assessments. So feel free to jot this down. Go to the link is actually at the bottom of this slide that we're sharing with you now. Or you can Google it, or you can go to YouTube and just type in MHS Talent, and that will come up. We've got a lot of videos on there, everything from the Entrepreneurial Edge video, which will be live within a week. We also focus on a lot of our different assessments that we have in the talent space. So you will find things such as information on our EQI 2.0, also the new Pyramid Personality Type in Action webinar is up on there, and just a lot. And the newly designed Pyramid Reports will be on there as well. We have a lot of different videos, and we encourage you to go check them out.
Thank you very much, Heather.
So I just wanted to put this up here for everyone on the line. For those in US and Canada, in this map, you'll see your partner relations consultant listed out here and the states that they cover. So feel free to reach out to any of these folks with any questions that you have or requests for stuff in your region. If you're outside of North America, we do have an international representative. Her name is Angelica Telez, and her information is on the screen as well. And then I just want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope we answered your questions about the intrapreneurs and Entrepreneurial Edge, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yes. Thank you very much, everyone.